大家好，歡迎收睇聚焦大選2025，我係吳婉華。澳洲聯邦大選即將舉行，今次大選中，好多人都密切關注工黨同埋自由黨嘅動向，尤其佢哋將提出各自嘅主張，爭取澳洲選民嘅支持。呢次選舉尤其重要，因為佢亦有可能結束工黨在野多年後第一次執政嘅局面，亦有可能自由黨黨魁 Peter Dutton 成為澳洲下一任嘅總理。澳洲聯邦下議院由150個議席組成，贏得今次選舉嘅政黨需要至少取得76個議席先可以成為下一任政府。隨住越來越多獨立議員當選進入下議院，外界好多評論猜測下一屆政府可能會係懸浮議會，即係 Hung Parliament， 需要依靠獨立議員嘅支持先可以組建政府。工黨目前喺下議院擁有78個議席，聯盟兩黨有57席。綠黨同獨立議員合共有15個席位。如果工黨今次希望連任，佢哋最多只能失去2個席位，而自由黨則需要贏得19個席位。我哋今日好榮幸請到 Dr. Stewart Jackson 嚟到我哋嘅節目，分析今次選舉嘅情況。Dr. Stewart 係悉尼大學政治學院嘅高級講師，佢嘅研究專注於澳洲政治。Thank you for joining us, Dr. Jackson.
My pleasure.
Can you give us some insights into the current political landscape and how the election might turn out and who might be the biggest winner this time?
The new government or the old government? The current political landscape is, to say the least, a little confused. We have the spectre, if you like, of the United States and the Trump victory there hanging over this current election. It is going to be a difficult one, I think, both for both major parties. The Liberal Party, the Liberal National Party, led by Peter Dutton, has, at the moment, it seems, the better or the advantage, except they have to make up a lot of ground. And a lot of that ground means they have to fight a lot of seats, some of them that should be theirs that are held by Teals and others that they have to win from the Labor Party. Whereas the Labor Party actually doesn't need to fight that many seats. It has a smaller number of marginals that it needs to concentrate on, and the 1 or 2 seats that it actually thinks it might actually win, perhaps back from the Greens, and here I'm thinking of Griffith. So in one respect it's more difficult for the coalition to win, but another sense is that it's a game of catch-up for the Labor Party under Albanese. It shouldn't be. He came into this with a certain amount of political goodwill, but things have not panned out, I think, the way that they would have hoped over the last 3 years.
So what are the key issues and policies at play at this election? What are most people concerned about?
The key issue, as it is for much of the world, is cost of living. Clearly, cost of living, housing, health will be the 3 key elements that people will be focused on. Can they afford to buy food? Can they afford to put petrol in their car? Can they afford to even have a small holiday? Or are they focused solely on surviving? Surviving is not a good position to be asking voters to vote for you if they can see that maybe you've been responsible, even if you haven't been. Housing, cost of housing is through the roof. Everybody knows it. Nothing's actually changed. We've been talking about it, the opposition talked about it, the current government talked about it, but nothing's actually changed. So housing. Health. We're getting older. We're in dire need to increase funding across the board. That's become obvious as some of the older hospitals and older diagnostic techniques have fallen out of use, and we need to reinvest. So those are the key issues at this point.
Now, can you give us some insights or your views of the performance of the Albanese Labor government, and why is there so much negativity about him in the press?
Well, one, they're the sitting government, which means they attract lightning. We saw that in the last 2 terms of the coalition, when if something went wrong, well, it all went back to the government and the government was at fault. That's the nature of being in government. You can't have everything going automatically your way. So you automatically attract lightning. Secondly, I think there was a great deal of hope for the new government when it was elected. We'd had this big block of Conservative leadership since 2013 to 2022, 9 years, and we had several prime ministers. It seemed to be a revolving door of prime ministers. It was not a good government. It was a government that had appeared to be ignoring what people wanted, certainly under Morrison. Who can forget the fires and him being on holiday in Hawaii? So there was a great deal of hope, tempered by, will this government actually be able to deliver? And I think that's where there's a certain amount of disappointment that's coming through now.
Now let's go to the Liberal Party. How would you vote Peter Dutton and the Coalition's performance over the last term? And do you think their policies, such as nuclear and housing policy, does that address key voter concerns?
No, in short, but I don't think that's what they're actually running on. Their nuclear policy is smoke and mirrors. It won't happen simply because it will take so long and cost so much money, keeping in mind that their nuclear policy is to be government funded, so they'll have to find extra money for doing this. A lot of extra money. Where's that money going to come from? Well, you can cut all your programs, but I can't see voters rewarding a government for cutting, as in the US Medicaid, but here health funding or education funding or whatever other part of funding. So I think it's a stalking horse for allowing coal and gas exploration and mining. So it's a stalking horse for that, for the same old, same old. In terms of housing policy, it's still stuck in the 20th century. In fact, I would have said the early part of the 20th century. It's still stuck in the mindset of everybody's got to have a house. The key features of Conservative policy on housing is land release. Release more and more and more and more land, which means people live further and further and further away from their jobs and from the centre of entertainment, culture, whatever. I don't think that's sustainable into the long term. This is part of what I was saying about if you wish to be a global city, then you're going to have to embrace some of those planning changes, even if it's uncomfortable. And I think that's, we know that that's actually something that's occurring now in each of the centres within Sydney, having to embrace some of those difficult decisions.
Now, on another question of key concern to our audience, if the Coalition does win, do you see that impacting Australia-Chinese relations? As we've seen with Scott Morrison in his last term, the relationship with China deteriorating, and also we've seen him cozy up to Donald Trump. What are your views on this?
I think Scott Morrison, even though people voted for him and he still retained a level of popularity, was a poor Prime Minister. His foreign policy experience beggars belief in some respects, because he was so focused on being friends with the United States and the United Kingdom. I think the coalition policies will disadvantage most groups within Australia other than English-speaking, native-born English speakers. They will be the ones who will perceive themselves being advantaged. This isn't America. It's not 50%, white, as it were. I just don't see it playing out well. Exactly how? Well, if Australia-Chinese relationships go downhill again, sour, then I can see people being increasingly racist, or there will be an increase in racism. And I think we'll return to that quite fractious relationship with China. And that's not good for Australia. China is our biggest trading partner. They are, in fact, our natural friend, not the US, who is a big trading partner, certainly, but China, India, Southeast Asia, this is the Australia of the future, not England, which is 12,000 miles or 10,000 miles away. Very much not.
So now to our next question. What are the key seats at play? What are the marginal seats that may change? And how may this determine the outcome of the coming election?
Western Australia is pretty safe. The polling points towards Labor holding its seats there. Queensland, there's not a lot left to lose. Actually, that means there's an opportunity to maybe pick up 1 or 2 seats. New South Wales and Victoria, however, you've got seats like Chisholm, you've got seats like Parramatta, in fact. You've got seats like what used to be Bennelong. These seats, which are the 5%ers, and that's the ones that we need to be looking at. Those that were elected with a two-party preferred within the 5% range. they're the ones that are going to be hard to keep. So this includes Reid, Sally Situ's seat. I think you will see a certain amount of tactical voting, particularly from places or organisations like Muslim Votes Matter, and I think that will have an impact in Western Sydney. What sort of impact it has in Victoria, I'm not entirely sure. We have the Teals. They'll be reduced by one because Kylie Tink's seat of North Sydney has been abolished.
Can you please give us a snapshot of what ordinary Australians will feel or see if the coalition gets elected or if the Albanese Labor government gets re-elected?
What we will see is an end to all projects around renewable energy if it's a Dutton victory or Dutton government. I think a collapse in the relationship with China. I don't see how Peter Dutton is going to be able to do anything with the US relationship. He's not someone that Donald Trump will respect at all. He's just a small man. In terms of the Albanese government, if it's re-elected, I think we'll see a continuation of the current policies, for better or for worse. Climate change will be addressed under an Albanese government. It will not be addressed under a coalition government. Housing, I think housing policy will bedevil both sides. I do think that the Labor Party is in a better place to deal with housing. It's one of their natural strengths. But I don't think they have necessarily thought through what it means to provide large-scale housing and how you provide that large-scale housing for people.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson, for your insights and for coming on our program. 廣告之後，我哋請嚟兩位澳洲經濟專家胡嘉龍先生同埋陳浩庭先生接受我哋嘅訪問。接下嚟，我哋將請嚟兩位澳洲經濟嘅專家，胡嘉龍會計理財集團主席胡嘉龍先生，同埋 Morgan 亞洲業務主管陳浩庭先生，嚟同我哋分析澳洲政府而家嘅經濟狀況，同埋今次聯邦大選結果將會對澳洲經濟、投資、房屋嘅政策有咩嘅影響？ Hello， 歡迎 Simon、Raymond 嚟到我哋今日嘅節目。Raymond 可唔可以同我哋分析一下澳洲而家嘅經濟狀況，同埋3年前有咩唔同呢？
澳洲經濟狀況咧，而家我哋見到早期有呢個 Covid， 咁之後咧政府咧就幫大家咧就喺呢個 Covid 嘅低谷裡面咧就上翻嚟。現在咧澳洲其實有一個結構性上邊嘅問題，利率仍然都係高，通脹仍然都係高，而整體咧其實我哋係進入一個轉型期。咁嚟緊啦，我哋見到澳洲經濟進入呢個叫做選舉週期啦。當然啦，我哋會好留意咧政府佢嘅政策上面會點做啊？尤其是咧喺個財政預算方面咧會點樣準備啦？
咁嗱，問一問你啦 ，Simon，今次選舉選民你覺得認為最關注嘅係咩問題，同埋兩黨有咩政策去應對呢啲咧？
嗱，其實咧就一般嘅民眾咧，就好多時候都係注重喺自己對自己有咩影響。譬如話嗰個生活水平，或者係我有口袋裏邊多咗幾多錢出嚟食，或者少咗幾多錢。呢個第一點。第二點咧就係會唔會個通貨膨脹繼續上升，而令到我將來未來嗰3年嘅生活更加困難咁樣。咁但係事實上再睇翻去兩黨能夠做到幾多嘢，令到一批選民話我揀你呢個好啊，揀嗰個好咧，其實唔係太多佢哋可以做到。最主要嘅理由咧就係政府嘅支出75% 到80% 咧，根本你喐唔到嘅。譬如話嗰個 social security 啦，嗰個 pension， 尤其 age pension 啊、NDIS 啊呢啲錢咧，已經佔咗35%至40%。咁你就有國防嘅支出啦，譬如話係教育啦、infrastructure 啊，咁你能夠走動嘅咧，得10幾20%嘅啫。咁呢兩個黨邊個執政都好啦，就喺呢度嗰度即係做下加多少少啊，減多少少啊。事實上對一般嘅人咧個影響唔係咁大。
咁根據最近財政部公布嘅中期經濟同埋財政展望，澳洲聯邦預算赤字同債務嘅水平有咩變化咧？
嗱，大家要了解一下就係財政預算案同埋中期展望咩分別先。財政預算案咧一般咧就係大概年中度咧會出嘅，之後咧大概6個月之後就有中期展望。咁當中咧我哋最新得到嘅就係叫做中期預算案。嗱，咁喺呢份報告裡面咧，大家就會見到澳洲赤字嘅問題啦。首先第一樣， 澳洲嘅預算案出嘅時候，25-26年即係下個財政年度，澳洲嘅赤字係428億，但係去到中期預算嘅時候咧，就已經上到469億。26-27年就由267億上到384億，27-28年即係話3年之後，由243億去到317億。嗱，有赤字咧嘅唔好處就係話澳洲嘅債務咧都會上升。我可以同大家講咧，澳洲嘅而家嘅國債已經係終於破萬億啦，嚇！咁破萬億即係幾多咧？而家個預算案裡面咧就係1.003萬億左右啦，嚇！咁之後會再提高。嗱，大家要知道咧，我哋現在享受呢啲赤字，即係話呢個經濟嘅繁榮，我哋呢一代會好開心，但係咧，我哋嘅下一代咧，就將會以高啲嘅稅率等等咧，去還翻呢啲咁嘅債㗎。啲債最終都要還嘅，唔會唔清嘅。咁所以咧，我會比較留意啲咧嗰個預算案裡面嗰個影響，同埋對嗰個生活水平，尤其是我哋下一代會點樣影響。
咁Simon嚟緊，如果工黨連任或者自由黨當選，會唔會對我哋澳洲嘅經濟政策帶嚟唔同嘅變化咧？
嗱，我分兩個角度去講啦。若果以短期嚟講咧，就每一個政黨執政當佢3年2任6年咁嘅樣咧。喺歷史嚟講咧，就自由聯盟黨咧嗰個對股市同埋嗰個樓市個都係正面少少，唔係話一定佢嘅政策係做得好好，而係佢哋有一個最基本嘅即係對做生意嘅朋友咧係比較優惠少少，同埋會使錢少啲。就而Labour Government 咧，即係工黨咧，就係主張大政府嘅。嗱，咁呢個係一個好短期嚟講。但係如果我哋話睇選舉咁講咧，如果選舉揀邊個政黨係會對未來會好咧，你不如調個角度去睇睇，話到底我哋澳洲有啲咩問題咧？我哋澳洲嘅問題，喺呢啲問題針對呢啲問題咧，呢兩個政黨所舉出嚟嘅政綱係會唔會針對佢咧？咁幾個好大嘅問題喺澳洲。第一，澳洲嗰個productivity， 即係我哋嘅生產能力啊，差唔多10年嚟不停咁下跌。第二就係我哋真係人工加咗咩？事實上冇。過去10年我哋嗰個生產能力下降，我哋就算係加咗人工，計埋通脹同埋唔好忘記，若果你收1000蚊嘅嗰個收入增加咧，你落袋冇1000蚊噶嘛，但係你個通貨膨脹係冇稅要俾嘅，咁變咗咧，你嗰個購買能力係不停下跌。我哋其實嗰個 disposable income 係不停下跌嘅。咁亦都係話，當我睇到政府同我講我哋經濟係有增長啊，但係事實上點解個個都覺得我哋好似喺衰退裏邊嘅咧？咁呢個係最主要嘅原因。咁另外一個角度就係話通脹同埋樓價問題。咁好多時候咧，每一個政策都有個正面同埋負面嘅。自由黨就係話我哋要減低嗰個移民，個理由就係我哋太少屋啦，唔掂啦。工黨就話我哋要增加啲移民，因為我哋唔夠人使，我哋勞工短缺。咁兩個政策都會有佢正面同負面嘅。講我哋全個澳洲經濟嘅增長啦，我哋冇咗移民啊，我哋分分鐘成日係冇增長或者衰退嘅，因為每一年嘅移民俾咗我哋1至1.5% 嘅經濟增長。如果我哋得2% 增長，即係話我哋每一年得0.5啊，係好差嘅一個經濟表現嚟嘅。咁若果你自由黨而家話要減25% 移民，冇錯，有個好處就係樓價嘅壓力唔會咁大，但係會唔會令到我哋好快步入衰退，或者係直情係完全冇增長咧？呢個可能性好高。所以你話邊個政策好咧？冇答案嘅，但係每一個政策咧有佢個好嘅地方，亦都有佢個負面嘅。
咁而家我哋睇下，即係睇翻過去3年啦，工黨嘅財政管理，你有冇評價，或者係覺得大部分好似啱啱所講，會係因為世界問題而影響到澳洲經濟咧？同埋如果譬如真係自由黨當選嘅，會唔會都係同樣有同樣嘅問題咧？
嗱，未來嗰3年，假設自由黨當選嘅話，咁個個睇唔到點樣。但係過去3年咧，我哋有一張冊咧，好清楚咁樣，係我哋衰得好緊要。 統計學唔會吹大炮啦。OK， 咁即係話俾我哋聽咧，其實過去3年嘅表現就係好差嘅。未來3年好唔好咧？我唔知道，但係喺目前嚟講，國際嗰個貿易戰啊，而家啱啱開始，咁未來3年其實我諗當家都不容易嘅。
嗱，咁 Raymond 而家我哋見到通脹有改善啦，咁喺你嘅角度嚟睇，係呢一個係必然啦，定係因為政黨執政嘅因緣咧？同埋如果譬如自由黨當選嘅話，會唔會有咩巨大嘅影響？定係呢一個係一個世界嘅變化？
好多人諗通脹咧，其實係咩咧？因為通脹好似好虛無縹緲咁樣。通脹嘅意思其實就係物價貴咗，咁我口袋嘅錢感覺少咗，因為我購買力下降。好啦，咁如果我哋從投資嘅角度，我哋翻去大學諗翻通脹要留啲咩咧？有一樣嘢叫 Phillips Curve 就叫菲利斯曲線。裏面咧其實就講通脹，我就咁講咧，好難解釋嘅。但係如果我加埋另一樣嘢咧，我就容易啲解釋啦，就係失業率。咁一般嘅意思就係咩咧？你個通脹通常就會上升，如果你嘅失業率係低，即係多人有工做。但係而家調翻轉咧，如果失業率係上升翻嘅話咧，你通脹就會降翻低啦。係啦，而家咧冇錯，通脹喺個高位慢慢跌緊落嚟，但係問題大家要知道，澳洲嘅失業率咧仍然喺4.1% 嘅水平，即係高定係低啊？我讀書嘅時候呢個就叫全民就業。一般嚟講咧，澳洲咧其實個失業率咧要上升到5% 之後嘅3個月開始，通脹先會下跌㗎。所以有啲朋友話快啲減息啦，快啲減息，要通脹落咗嚟先。咁而另一方面，我哋要諗嘅就係咩咧？就係話我睇一睇過去呢2年乜嘢行業請得最多人咧？我估唔到原來係政府請得最多人喎。咁亦都喺個大選嚟緊嘅時候咧，我相信呢樣嘢唔會解決嘅。咁下一個政黨邊個贏，係執政黨贏定係在野黨贏，大家唔知。但我相信咧就係話大選選完之後咧，政府嘅徵聘咧會少咗，會低咗，從而咧有機會咧令到個失業率咧慢慢上升翻。上升咗之後咧，我哋先可以緩緩見到咧通脹壓力減少，咁係對民生啊各方面咧反而先會有一個比較顯著嘅改善。
其實我可唔可以加少少嘢嚇？咁頭先我好同意阿 Raymond 講嗰樣嘢咧，就係最近呢幾年請得最多人原來係政府。咁我亦都有一張 chart 喺度咧，就係過去差唔多60年㗎啦。咁而喺過去10年裏邊咧，澳洲嘅政府越嚟越多人，咁就話我哋 government spending 好犀利啦。咁從以前60年代嘅低過20%，一直咁樣上，到而家係28%，係一個基本上係澳洲歷史嘅新高。正如阿 Raymond 講，你政府基本上請人多咧，係冇生產任何我哋叫 good and services， 冇生產產品啊，冇俾咩 service， 佢揾嚟管理啫嘛。若果越嚟越多呢啲人咧，其實係令到成個澳洲個經濟會拖慢，越嚟越差嘅。咁若果能夠改善呢個，會自然會好啦。咁若果以呢個政策嚟講咧，就好明顯就係自由黨咧就會精簡嗰個政府架構，而工黨就會因為工黨最大嘅選票係政府嗰啲人啊嘛。咁邊個啱邊個唔啱 ？Again 係冇答案嘅，但係就係嗰個事實就係我哋嘅政府支出係個比重啊越嚟越重。
時間差唔多，再次多謝 Simon 同埋 Raymond 嚟到我哋個節目。